Yeah, we're on to Duke. So my message to the team this morning, they had Saturday night and Sunday to enjoy a really nice victory at home against a very good team, and that's all they get. So now every bit of attention and focus and energy goes on to improving the things we can improve, controlling the things we can control, and working hard to prepare for another ACC opponent. Our opponent is skilled. Their record is strong. I think they're coached really well. They're clear about their identity. They're playing with confidence, and we're on the road. So all those things make this week's preparation really important, and our focus has to be at a really high level, and that was my message to our team. So I'll take questions.
What was the difference in the defensive performance the other night compared to the NC State game?
Yeah, simply playmaking. Some of the balls that went downfield against NC State, they caught. If you remember one of the first plays, it looked like Brenton Nelson might intercept it in the end zone, and their player caught it. If you think about, man, the back shoulder throw that Bryce was on their receiver and he catches it for a touchdown, we just simply made the plays that we were in position to make, as opposed to not making them. And we still had errors, we still missed tackles, we still had some of the other things that were the same in both games. The difference simply was the plays that we were in position to make, we made. We made at a high level, and they just happened to be at critical times. I would also add there were 2 fourth down stops. At NC State there was a fourth down, what appeared to be a stop that wasn't, and those things changed the game. And so those games were more similar than not, other than the handful of plays we didn't make in that game we made in this game.
Bronco Juan said there were no real adjustments defensively from one game to the other, but he said we just played harder.
Yeah.
Did they play harder, or is that just a function of the outcome?
No, I think that they played harder with more confidence, and their mindset is becoming the right word is hard to say. Angry isn't the right word, but they're more determined, and it bothers them when they get scored on. They want to be very strong defensively in terms of not only outcome, but their own performance, and they're taking more and more pride in playing in Virginia's defensive system. And the NC State game bothered them because there were plays they left out there they knew they could have made and they didn't. And so, yeah, there weren't a ton of adjustments. There were some, but there weren't a ton of adjustments. It was just simply not necessarily what we're doing, but how we're doing it. And that's probably what he was talking about.
Also, you commented on the atmosphere being probably the best it's been here since you got here.
Yeah.
What does this team do? Juan said after the game also, like, we can win the ACC.
Mm-hmm.
What do you guys need to do, or as a guy who's been around a little bit, what do you need to do on the road so they're not relying on that or don't need that? It's just 85 guys or whatever it is that travel.
Yeah, we talked about that this morning also. While the external environment can influence, it doesn't determine. And there's a difference. And it was just the team was happy and just short of surprised that the turnout was strong for our game, but also just, man, our student section was awesome. And the noise, and it was just, there was a home field advantage. And that was a really cool environment to play in, and we were so appreciative of our fans being there. The strong teams and the teams that are consistent and win, and what I shared with our team this morning, as we mature and we grow, yeah, the external is acknowledged, but that does not determine outcome. And so we talked about the difference in what playing at Duke will be like. We've been there once before and won, and some of those players are gone, but some remember, and so that atmosphere will be distinct and separate and much different than we just had. That does not mean the outcome and the internal drive and the performance needs to change. That requires a higher level of maturity and a higher level of consistency and a higher level of program development. So that's right where we are, and that's what we need. And so I framed it exactly like that to our team, and where they go with that will determine a lot of what the outcome of this game will be.
Excuse me, one of the NFL draft board things that comes out early came out the other day and rated Daniel Jones the #1 draftable quarterback in the draft. You guys have had great success about him. What do you like about him, and how have you been able to negate him?
Yeah, so I certainly like his size. I like his arm strength, and for the most part, with the exception in our games, his decision making has been really strong. The main difference in the 2 games that we've beaten Duke is just for whatever reason the ball has been thrown to us. So some of the decisions the quarterback has made, and just simply through the turnovers, that really has determined the outcome. And I can't say that it's some wild or elaborate or unique scheme. It just has happened that in our 2 games, the ball's been turned over from them to us more than maybe what it has in other games. But back to the original point, their quarterback is certainly capable of making any throw, certainly has the size to handle pressure, vision, arm strength. He's been coached exceptionally well by probably one of the best coaches, offensive mind and quarterback coaches that there is in Coach Cutcliffe. So his preparation has led to his performance, and now he just is more mature and he's older, and so every year he plays he gets better and better.
Could you talk about your 2 sixth-year guys? And I guess they could have packed it in, but they're still around contributing.
Yeah, they are still around, and probably the best way to frame it is Malcolm. He grabbed me afterwards and just said, "Man, it's been 6 years, and I finally," he said, I finally am part of winning that game or beating them." And those are the coolest moments for me as a coach, when players are really and authentically touched and appreciative of what's happening, and to feel part of it and genuinely moved and thankful. And so that was one of the few comments that really struck me during the game. Another one was a first year. So if you take Malcolm as a 6th year, and then Tavares Kelly's on the sideline, and I think there was a timeout or a TV break, and he was standing there just looking across the field at some of his former competitors in high school and possibly teammates. And rarely am I like this in the game, but I just said, "Man, I'm sure glad you're with us." And he said, "Man, it's the best decision I ever made." And I don't think he had an offer to go to Miami, but I could tell he was just looking across and liked where he was, liked how the current game was going, and was appreciative of being on our team. And yeah, so those 2 moments were gratifying to me as a head coach.
One quick fact check. Did you do your walk around the stadium before the Miami
Absolutely.
game? Okay. Just checking before.
Yeah, it's a non-negotiable.
And going back and looking at the way you ran the football, they came in #1 in the league, stopping the run. Is it as simple as the line played better, or was there something different that made it work?
It's just the first point. That was so when I visited with our offensive staff today, so on Mondays I usually have a chance to catch up offensively, give them my thoughts, and vice versa, defensively and special teams. And the first thing that Robert said when he came in was I was really impressed by our offensive line play. And so that doesn't mean we were dominant, but it means we were effective. And when we can be in third and manageable and run the ball for first downs, we control the game. And that's really what we want to do. And then Bryce can be more effective, and certainly his legs are helping us with our run game. But traditional runs, the Jordan Ellis runs, were blocked better, more effectively. And back to the original question, it wasn't necessarily what we were doing, it's how we were doing it. And they played with more confidence, a stronger mindset, more physicality, and that was the difference.
You credited Anai with being on the sideline. What made that decision? How did that come about?
It really was his idea. He thought that at NC State and Indiana we were a little hesitant and tentative offensively, and more reactionary rather than dictatorial, meaning this is what we're going to do and how, and that's one of his strengths. He's certainly not afraid of anyone, anywhere, anyhow, and that presence seemed to match where we currently are and need to be as we get ready for the Now it was a 7-game stretch. The 6-week ACC game stretch, I guess it's 5 of the 6, and what mindset that's going to need to have. And so sometimes when the words aren't enough, right, then example is more powerful. And so that was the genesis behind it.
Hey, Bronco.
Hey.
You had the big win at Boise State last year. You got this one at home. What's it been like for you this weekend walking around among people who saw it in person?
Oh, gratifying, and not 1 minute personally. It's just people were glad to be at the game and to see them happy, And I was getting comments like, "Wow, the stadium, man, it hasn't felt like that in a while." And so those kind of comments are there's this sense that this actually might work. Wait a second, this team and this program and this approach and this staff, we could actually have really good football again at UVA, and it could be a consistent winner. And we see this happening, and I think that was kind of the sense of me, not the comments they were making, but just how excited they were that they were there, saw it, and liked it. And I would love this community and this institution and the state to have, again, a great place to come watch and participate in an amazing college football experience, and that's what we're working to build.
Neither Charles Snowden nor Elliott Brown had much of a football resume when he arrived here. Each had played basketball. We know what Charles has done. Where is Elliott in his development? Looked like he played a significant amount the other day along with Matt Gamm.
Yeah, so Elliott, I would say, is exactly where Charles was 1 year ago. And so Elliott's football resume was similar to Charles. Charles has just, through opportunity, has just basically had more opportunity and more experience. And so where Elliott is now, which is a great compliment that he kind of makes his debut and has earned his stripes against Miami, he has impressed us enough now to basically do what Charles was doing a year ago, and we'll kind of launch from there. Some of our depth concerns at inside backer have had us looking for, okay, now who else? And so that led to Matt Gamm, right, which was already getting some action and as a backup and is solid and consistent and reliable, but then Elliott was next. And so we framed and designed a nice role for him, and he did really well in that role.
Was he playing inside and outside, or a hybrid?
Yeah, it's hybrid is the best way to say it. We have so many personnel groups now defensively. We're just really working to highlight the best players we have versus the situation the game calls for at any time, because we're not deep enough to have just one group that can play everything. And so we're becoming pretty hybrid as a defense, quite frankly, versus different offensive looks and personnel groups. We're basically playing different styles of defense with the best players we have on our roster, and that gives us enough then to get through a game.
Coach, after Delaney's performance on Saturday, is that kicking competition still open in practice, or would you say he's earned the job?
No, he's earned the job. Let me reframe that. So, yeah, he has earned the job pending just consistent performance in practice. So it won't be now head-to-head in practice versus another one of our kickers. However, I'm known to, if a player then doesn't perform well in practice or looks lackluster or the consistency doesn't seem to be there, then it opens up again. So Brian controls that now. If he practices like he just did and performs like he did in our game, it's his job. If at some point in practice he then is not consistent or doesn't seem to be on, then I open it back up. But it's his now to lose.
And having a chance to have gone back and watched the film on them, can you just talk about Bryce's 3 interceptions, what you saw on those 3 plays? Let's see.
The first one was throwing back across his body, so all the front side looks were covered. Alameda then pivots and opens himself away from coverage, but as Bryce stopped and then stopped to deliver, that gave a defender a chance to then catch up to him. So trying to do too much versus the look that he had rather than just throwing it out of bounds. A player flashed open on the second one as well. He just threw the ball high. And, the third one, man, that was a great play by the corner. So our receiver, and he's got an outside release, released inside, and then worked his way back out. The defensive back undercut, and just Hasis has been playing really well, and the defender took it away. And so the first two were more quarterback driven. The third one was a really good play by the defender. And the first two, what they had in common was just working to do too much rather than just, some plays just aren't going to work. And Bryce has been pretty consistent with ball security throughout the year. That one, I think, just pushing a little too much, trying to accomplish a little too much too early.
Bronco, back here. What do you think of the job Vic Soto has done developing some of those young guys on the line? And also, what's kind of his role in recruiting?
Vic has his hands full. His continued development of Mandy Alonso that's a full-time job, and trying to get him as active and as consistent and productive as he can be. And then you add Aaron Famui to that, and that's where Mandy was a year ago, which was a full-time job then. And then you add Jordan Redmond in addition to Aaron and Mandy, so that's another full-time job. So it'd be the equivalent of maybe a single mom or a dad who has a job during the day and then does something else at night. That's where Vic's world right now. Vic was my first commit when I became the head coach at Brigham Young, and so I've been with him a long, long time. And he has an engaging, dynamic, and charismatic personality. His wife Ashley was my personal assistant or secretary at BYU. She's phenomenal. They're just a young kind of power couple. And Vic, he has to be able to, which he is, attract and bring great young players, especially defensive linemen, to our program. And when this upcoming recruiting class is signed, I think you'll see that there's significant progress being made in that regard. But he is kind of, when you enter this profession, there's a road warrior element, and that's one of the things you have to do besides being skilled on the field. And you have to demonstrate your ability to bring in good players, and that's right where Vic is right now. So he's got his hands full with developing players. Any minute he's not doing that, he's recruiting, and that's a big job.
Bronco, I think the official count is 86,000 people claim to have been there on Saturday night by now. 2 years ago when you got here, and just from the reaction you're getting around town, to hear a player talk of winning the ACC championship, kind of unheard of, pretty heady stuff. You guys do something different in that you get Sunday off, so that you gave them, a day, more than almost 2 days to kind of celebrate this. What do you do to get them back into focus so that, you hear about one loss beating you twice? How do you not let one loss or one win beat you?
It's the next challenge in our program. Number one, the players haven't been asked or to say that they think they have a chance to win the conference. That's an outright goal for every team in the league. That they actually believe it enough to say it, that's a significant step. That doesn't mean it's boastful. It doesn't mean it's bragging. They just believe at a lot different level that they actually have a chance in every game they have remaining on the schedule, which is a powerful thing that's come through a lot of work. It doesn't guarantee anything, and it doesn't really predict anything. It just means they think they can do it. Along with that comes maturity, and a lot of times things are better left unsaid, and you just work and let the outcome speak for itself, kind of under-promise and over-deliver. The best way to not have one win now affect the next game is by the head coach framing a real demanding practice tomorrow, and to where it's almost all they can do to survive it. And so that's what I plan to do.
I apologize to Juan.
You said on the ACC conference call last week that Joe Reed was something of an enigma. Didn't have a big game from a stats standpoint the other day. I assume you just meant that his numbers weren't what you'd like, not that he wasn't contributing.
That's exactly right. We're still, You know, sometimes as a teacher, as an educator, there's a student or students in the class that you just are really working, you just haven't quite connected with, or you haven't found maybe their learning style, or what really all of a sudden has that light bulb come on, and then, man, okay, that's how I communicate or how I teach, or that's the role where this individual really blossom. And so that's more of what I was referring to. And man, we had a lot of nice design for Joe in the game against Miami, and it's not an issue of capability, nor is it an issue of desire on his part. We're just, for whatever reason, we've just struggled finding the right niche, the right presentation, and the right way to have everything click for him to really become and be who he is. And it's just something that, man, I wish I could put my finger on it, but it's absolutely worth pursuing and continuing because of the ability and the capability that Joe has.
You've mentioned several times over the past couple of seasons that Evan Butts always seems to be open and has maybe the best hands on the team. Are you guys, are defenses treating him differently now because of that past history, and what can you do about that?
Yeah, I would say yes, they are. They're certainly more aware of him, and those are really consistent chain-moving throws. We had one early in the game, and then, man, didn't notice Evan much until he gets the onside kick, and might be the play of the game, you know. So, and he was in that spot for a reason. I mean, our level of trust and reliance on him is wherever we think the action needs to be or a critical play needs to be made in a moment where we just need a possession and we need a first down. And where he was on the onside or the hands team reflected that as well. So he's getting a lot more attention. The coverage is certainly tighter. And that makes it harder on us. However, what we have to be able to do, and it is happening, Hassis then is getting less coverage. Because if there's an extra player on the inside and the outside maybe of Butts, that's one less outside. Or if Alamede's on that same side, then, and so, yeah, Evan has earned kind of the awareness, but that has also contributed somewhat to Alamede and Hassis's role they've had this year. And hopefully we can just get that all going at the same time. Again, if we can get production from one more outside receiver at the same time as the rest of that, that'll be, that's more of what we're hopeful for.
I don't know how often you rep that full contact, that onside, but had he broken one or had one pop
No,
up?
he hasn't. He hadn't broken one, and nor really had there ever been an instance where that kind of bounce happened before 10 yards. And so if you were to see it on film, Miami's players are getting out of the way because they know it hadn't gone 10 yet. They're kind of uncertain as to, you know, what to do. Evan just saw an opening, got the right bounce, and realized, because some of those players were already behind him. And so it was a lot of players, even on our team, would have just caught it and went down. That yardage that he got instantly put us in field goal range. And one of the differences in the game was that yardage on the onside kick return, but also our interception returns. And so, man, the field position really swung on interception returns and an onside kick return, which, man, that doesn't happen very often. But that was just a heads-up play by an experienced player.
In the big picture, a year ago, you guys opened up, I guess it was 5-1, and struggled down the stretch. And obviously there was a difference in the opponents. But did you see anything last year that has changed your approach to practice, schedule, pep talks, anything going into the second half of this year?
No, their words won't determine anything. What is similar is the depth on our roster is very similar. It's affecting practice right now. It's affecting rotation right now. And it certainly will affect how we have to manage our team down the stretch. What is different is our confidence continues to grow. Our capability continues to increase, but it's slow and it's steady and it's methodical. And most of our ACC wins, if you look at last year, we were on the field right at the very end against Duke, against North Carolina, against Georgia Tech. The one we just had, that's how this is going to evolve. We've only had one that wasn't a last-minute type of play, and that was Louisville. But we're preparing more for the 4 of the 5, how those look, than what the Louisville game looked like. And so that part will be similar. And ultimately it will come down to those handful of plays. And when we make them, we'll win. And if not, then it'll be frustrating and sad, and then we'll refocus and again try to get the right players in the right spot at the right time in the right scheme to be able to deliver what they can do. And that's exactly where our roster is versus any opponent, and what we're working hard to do.
Coach, this past week you had Eli at nose tackle. Jordan, I don't believe, played a snap. Was that because was Jordan banged up, or was that just more of a, as you looked at things, you wanted to play Eli there and get that experience?
Yeah, matchup versus Miami, a real athletic front that was offensive front in my mind, and more of a side-to-side run game than a downhill run game. Jordan is pretty strong at the point of attack, and when you go right downhill, when you just now start talking about running to the edges, our best configuration that didn't match Jordan's current skill set. It matched more Eli and Aaron Famui, as well as Mandy, and then other, as we've already mentioned, a few extra linebackers.
Brian Delaney told me he had never done an interview since he got to UVA, and he found himself sitting in front of a dozen reporters and TV lights, and I asked him what he thought of that, and he said it's fun. What does that say about his personality and his level of coolness?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it would shock any of our team members to say it's fun. There's not. He doesn't take himself too seriously, which in a game like that where he just steps up and kicks, in that role in that kind of setting with the pressure on him like he did, I think it will endear him to his teammates, and certainly as the coaches, he doesn't seem to be too rattleable, and I'm going to go with that until he proves me otherwise.
Coach, still over here.
Yeah.
In the preseason, R.J. Proctor had the injury, and then he took a while to get back, but he played a lot on Saturday. Did he get more healthy during the bye week, and how much did he give a boost to the line?
So I was just talking with Robert and Garrett before I came over here, and I thought he had the strongest game of any of our offensive linemen, and it was the closest that I've seen him back to 100% since the injury. It's been a long haul, and we need extra push at the guard spot. We need targeting and aggression, and we need more movement. And so he had a strong game, and we needed him. So it was a bright spot to finally have a player returning to full health at a position of need, and it had a lot to do with some of the runs we had.
When you were just talking about Evan's kickoff return, you said that put you in field goal range. You haven't always known kind of what the field goal range is. What does it do, I guess, for the offense if you can feel comfortable from, say, 45 and in?
It does a lot for all of us, because we know there's points, and that changes play call. It changes the way the game is managed, and we haven't had that in place until Saturday, and at least in the time that I've been here. And now whether it will remain in place, that's still a question. One game is not enough to then say Brian has arrived and now UVA's strong finally in the field goal area, but at least it's a start. And with the expansion of how far out we can kick the football, that again will lead to game management decisions that we haven't been able to make for a long time.
Take our last two questions from Ron and Doug.
As you look back at the defensive performance last week, one thing that stood out was the play calling was a lot more aggressive, a lot more extra blitzers on the pass rush. Was that something you saw prior to that game that you wanted to have more of? And what are your thoughts on that kind of risk reward, blitzing more guys and having man coverage on the outside?
So the real kind of story behind the story, it was the illusion of pressure. So the same number of blitzers, the same number of rushers were incorporated, but just from their different bodies and different looks. And so very little changed other than the initial presentation. And so the illusion of pressure actually ended up creating pressure. And so as we add different bodies and different matchups, it appears like, wow, what are they doing? And it's basically the same.
20 or 30 minutes after the game, Juan Thornhill was still showing a lot of fire in the locker room. Just talk about his drive and what you could see that game meant for him.
Yeah, Juan wants to be good. and he wants our team to be strong. And he is, now that Quinn is gone and Micah is gone, what you really hope as a program is that your best players also become your best workers and your best leaders. And so Juan is emerging, and he's learning how to fill all those roles. And he plays with emotion, he plays with passion. He's certainly a capable playmaker, and he's best when he is on edge. And so that it takes him a while to come down is a positive thing, because when he's on edge and when he's emotional and when he goes to that place that he was on Saturday, as long as he's practiced fiercely in terms of his assignments and the responsibilities he has, and then when he adds that edge, playmaking is the result. And if his practice habits and his work ethic during the week hasn't been strong, then that can lead to missed assignments and miscues that lead for the opponent to have success. So he's just now starting to get the right balance of preparation and the emotion that then leads to playmaking. And if he makes plays, much like Bryce on offense, when Juan makes plays, we have to have him make plays for us to have success as a team and as a defense. And when he does, it makes a clear difference.